Congressman Bob Latta joins us here for the talk back this evening. It's supposed to be his vacation, quote unquote, but you are certainly out working, traveling all over the counties. I want to ask you about the budget when it comes to Washington, the temporary solution, temporary fix here in 2011. When you look at 2012, there are a couple of pretty solid plans out there. You have President Obama's and then Congressman Ryan's out there, which are all over the place. What do you think is the best way to handle going forward in 2012?
Well, I think number one, it's cutting spending. And the stage has been set. We have to do it. And so under the Ryan budget, that's about a $6.2 trillion cut over 10 years. And also reducing the deficit over that time by about $4.4 trillion and not raising taxes because, you know, depending where you are in the country, you could still say you're in a recession. You don't raise taxes in a recession. And, you know, the president wants to raise about $1 trillion in taxes and about $2 trillion in cuts. And so, you know, there's a big difference between the two plans.
Does the Congressman Ryan plan go too far? Or do you think that's where we need to be?
You know, if you look where we're going to be, because right now we borrow, for every dollar the federal government spends, we're borrowing 43 cents of it. So that's just astounding right off the bat. And then, you know, we're paying about 10 cents on every dollar, you know, we're looking at interest payments that's coming out with the federal government spending. So we've got to do something. It's got to be pretty drastic because the charts, if you look at them, just skyrocket straight up if we don't get this thing under control. Now, we go from a $14 trillion debt today to $26 trillion in less than 10 years.
Wow, so that could skyrocket then. And something else that obviously has come up recently, the gas prices have gone astronomical around here, and maybe they're even worse in D.C., I don't know. Is there anything you think that can be done in Washington that can help people around here with those prices?
You know, number one, we got to take care of ourselves in this country. You know, there's studies coming out showing that energy-wise, the United States is probably the largest in the world for being able to produce its own energy if we want to. But right now, you know, from the president and a lot of folks in his cabinet, they just don't want to do what we have to do.
You mean do we need to drill more?
Well, we have to drill, and we have to let those people, you know, get into these areas so they can get these leases and drill. You know, some people say, well, we've got plenty of leases out there, but not every lease is going to have productivity on it. And a lot of these leases have lawsuits on them. So sometimes you have to look at the leases as they're talking about and say, you know what, wait a minute, let's back up here for a second, because if we're going to have self-sufficiency here, because when you're importing 60% of all of our oil in this country, we can't have that.
You know, obviously that's going to be a long-term fix, though. Is there anything short-term? I mean, obviously Libya is affecting things. Do we need to go either harder or scale back there? Would that help?
Well, you know, a lot of that oil goes into Europe, but it affects everything worldwide. China, depending on who you look at, either one report says they became the largest consumer of energy in the world last year, or there's number 2. Either way, they're going to be consuming a lot more fuel, and they're out there consuming it right now. And so we have a lot more competition out there because, you know, we've been at the top being the consumer out there, but now we've got a real big competition.
I got a little bit of time left for you here. I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick. Never too early to start looking at the 2012 presidential election. Donald Trump's got his name out there. Haley Barbour has now said no. Do you have in your mind anybody you think that would be a great challenger for President Obama?
You know, I think that some of
and you're self-excluded.
Yeah, right. I think that what we need to do is it would be a few more months before things start shaking. I think there's some folks out there, governors from across the country, that might start surfacing that, you know, some people have heard a little bit about right now, but I think that a lot of them think that, you know, if I get out there too early right now, that I'm going to get beat up so bad in the next few months that it's not going to be worth it. And I think some of them are keeping their powder dry for a few more months.
Is there anybody that's really struck you in the last few years that you've been there, you say, I got a real good feeling about that person?
Well, I tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that's going to go in there and say, you know what, we've got to get this federal budget under control, and we can't do it by raising taxes, because all we're going to do is kill the initiative out there for people to go out there and create jobs. And we want to make sure that we have somebody that can balance a budget. And you know, a lot of these governors in the states have been able to do that. And so that's what I'm kind of looking for.
So I can't pin you down on a name?
Not yet.
All right, I try. Congressman, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's your talk back.